Now let's take a few minutes to talk about new government regulation and compliance that may challenge the life insurance industry. With your work with ACLI, you see the most current concerns and opportunities in Washington, D.C. What regulation or compliance trends are you seeing for the insurance industry with the change of party leadership after the 2020 election?
Great question. There are probably 4 key items that will be the focus of the ACLI and the regulatory bodies over the next few years. And only one of them really will be heavily driven by the party leadership. The first is illustration regulations. That's something that we seem to have trouble getting right as an industry and in cooperation with the regulatory bodies, making sure illustrations are understandable and we reduce the risk of differences between what the illustration shows and reality in the future. The second will be racial inequity. It's something that was obviously, given the 2020 events, something that's on everyone's mind, and certainly the regulators. And so we want to do in working with the regulators is making sure that we do a good review to make sure there's no bias and discrimination within our policies, particularly underwriting policies, without harming the very technology which is going to help drive closing the coverage gap in lower income population. The next is DOL, obviously. DOL is something that will be impacted by the party leadership. We don't know if it will be Department of Labor, but it's something that looks and feels like DOL. We're expecting a lot of conversation around that over the next 4 years. And we want to make sure that work on the regulatory side does not harm and increase the coverage gap, which is what we're concerned about. And then lastly, we really need discussions with our regulatory bodies around regulatory modernization, where we need them to embrace innovation within our industry. We need them to give us relief on some things that, for example, force us to drive paper on one hand, but on the other hand, we have environmental regulations and desires to be more efficient and better for the environment, and digital is good for that. And we have conflicting regulations and conflicting regulatory concerns in those areas. And so modernizing our regulatory system is a conversation we need to drive with our regulators.
John, thank you for your time today. It's been great to learn about how Symetra is helping close the life insurance coverage gap in the U.S. and hear your perspective on possible upcoming regulations and compliance trends.